If you've ever watched a child realize she's unwanted, you know the silence is worse than screaming. The moment my mother slid that empty Christmas card across the table to my 8-year-old daughter, the entire room stopped breathing. And my daughter smiled anyway. She smiled because she had no idea she was holding the deed to the lake house. My name is Ivy. I'm 39 years old. And this is Relaxing Drama Stories. The first time my mother called Maya not real family, she thought I didn't hear her. Maya was 3 then. Tiny, curly dark hair, big brown eyes. The kind of child who carried stuffed animals like they had emotional needs. I had just finalized the adoption 6 months earlier. After years in military legal service. After deployments. After too many nights sleeping in places where mortars replaced thunderstorms. I thought coming home with a daughter would heal something inside me.
And it did.
Mostly. But my mother, Lorraine Andrews, looked at Maya the same way people look at rain during a wedding. An inconvenience. A disruption. Something temporary. She's sweet, Mom would say to church friends. Then she'd lower her voice. But of course, she's not actually ours. The first time I challenged her, she laughed. Oh, Ivy, don't be dramatic. That became her favorite sentence. Don't be dramatic. When Maya cried after preschool because another child said adopted kids were borrowed, my mother told me I was too sensitive. When Maya asked why Grandma never displayed her school pictures beside the other grandchildren, Mom said the wall was already crowded. When Maya was 6 and drew our family with crayons, my mother stared at the picture and asked, "Why did you color yourself differently from Mommy?" Maya looked confused, then embarrassed, then quiet. I hated that quiet. Children learn shame in silence. And my mother specialized in silence.
My father wasn't like that.
Arthur Andrews loved Maya instantly. Not politely. Not carefully. Fully. The first week he met her, he taught her how to skip stones across the lake behind the family cabin in northern Minnesota. The cabin had been in our family for 40 years. Hand-built cedar walls.
Krokodok.
Blue shutters Dad painted himself after retirement. Every Andrews memory lived there. Fishing. Christmas mornings. Summer cookouts. Storms rolling across the water. Dad used to say the lake house wasn't property. It was proof. Proof that people could build something lasting. Maya adored him. And he adored her right back. He called her Captain. Because she always marched around giving orders. At 4 years old, she once told him squirrels needed better leadership. Dad laughed so hard, he nearly dropped his coffee into the lake. But my mother hated how close they became. I noticed it slowly. Like mold spreading behind wallpaper. Subtle. Hidden. Dangerous. At family dinners, she'd ask my nephew Caleb about baseball. She'd ask my niece Emma about ballet. Then she'd look directly past Maya. Sometimes Maya tried anyway. "Grandma, want to see my drawing?" "Oh, maybe later." "Grandma, I learned multiplication." "That's nice." "Grandma, look what Grandpa gave me." And there it was. That tiny flash in Mom's eyes. Jealousy.
Not toward me.
Toward an 8-year-old child. Dad noticed too. But he handled pain differently. Quietly. He started keeping things.
Notes.
Documents. Photos. Receipts. Not because he planned revenge. Because he believed records mattered. He was an engineer for 32 years. The kind of man who labeled extension cords. The kind who filed warranties alphabetically. The kind who believed truth survived best on paper. 5 years ago, he got sick. Aggressive pancreatic cancer.
Fast.
Cool. I was deployed in Kuwait when the diagnosis came. I remember sitting in a military tent at 2 in the morning reading my mother's text message 3 times because my brain refused to process the words. Dad dying felt impossible. Like mountains evaporating. I got emergency leave 2 weeks later. By then he looked smaller. Still smiling.
Still joking.
But smaller. Maya climbed into his hospital bed without fear. She tucked her little stuffed rabbit beneath his arm and whispered, "So, you're not lonely." Dad cried after she fell asleep beside him. Not loud. just tears sliding silently into his gray beard. She saved me, he whispered. No, I told him. You saved her. He shook his head. You don't understand, Ivy. But I would later. 3 weeks before he died, Dad asked me to meet him alone at the lake house. Snow covered the dock. The water looked black beneath winter clouds. Dad sat wrapped in 2 blankets beside the fireplace. He looked exhausted, but alert.
Sharp.
I need you to listen carefully, he said. I sat beside him. He handed me a cedar box.
Small. Polished.
Heavy. Don't open this unless your mother leaves Maya out at Christmas. I frowned. Dad.
She will.
The certainty in his voice chilled me more than the snow outside. She's waited years for permission to make Maya feel separate. After I'm gone, she'll finally do it openly. You don't know that. He looked at me sadly. Yes, I do. Then he touched the cedar box. And when she does, give this to Maya. What is it? Protection. I wanted details. But he just leaned back and closed his eyes. Conversation over. Dad died 11 days later. The funeral was packed. Military honors. Family friends. Neighbors from the lake community. My mother performed grief beautifully. Perfect black dress. Perfect trembling voice. Perfect tears. But the day after the funeral, she removed Maya's framed photo from the living room shelf. That told me everything. Still, I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak. Because grief makes cowards out of people who are usually brave. And because Maya was watching. Children remember how adults behave after funerals. The first Christmas without Dad felt hollow. My mother hosted anyway. She insisted on tradition. Matching ribbons. Formal dinnerware. Candles everywhere. Like decorations could disguise absence. Maya wore the red sweater Dad bought her before he died. Too big then. Perfect fit now. When we arrived, my brother Daniel hugged me quickly before returning to football on television. His wife, Rachel, barely looked up from her phone. Their son sprinted through the house screaming. Emma practiced TikTok dances in the hallway mirror. Nobody greeted Maya. Not intentionally. They just didn't notice her. Mom noticed everyone else. She praised Caleb's new private school. Admired Emma's necklace. Complimented Daniel's promotion. Then Maya quietly handed Grandma a handmade ornament. A painted wooden snowflake. My mother stared at it like unpaid taxes. Oh, she said. How creative. She placed it on the side table. Not the tree. The side table. Maya noticed. Of course she noticed. Children always notice. Dinner passed with careful tension. Mom asked me whether I planned to ever settle down properly. Translation.
Get married.
Produce biological children. Create a family she recognized. I already have a family, I answered. She smiled tightly.
Yes.
Of course. Daniel changed the subject immediately. Cowardice runs comfortably in families. After dinner came gifts. The boys received brand new iPads. Emma got diamond earrings. Daniel received expensive golf clubs. Rachel opened an envelope with concert tickets. Then Mom handed Maya a thin Hallmark card. Nothing inside. Not even cash. Just the printed words. Warm holiday wishes. I watched Maya open it carefully. Slowly. Hopefully. Then I watched realization settle across her face. Not tears. Worse. Understanding. Children can survive cruelty easier than exclusion.
Exclusion tige permanence.
The room went silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Daniel stared at the carpet. Rachel suddenly became fascinated with wine. Emma looked uncomfortable. And my mother smiled like nothing unusual happened. Well, she said brightly. I wasn't sure what children her age like these days. Her. Not Maya. Her. My hands clenched beneath the table. Every deployment. Every battlefield briefing. Every courtroom cross-examination. None of it prepared me for the rage of watching someone wound your child politely. Then Maya surprised everyone. She smiled gently, reached into her little backpack, and placed a cedar box in front of my mother. The exact cedar box Dad gave me 5 years earlier. Mom froze instantly. I saw the blood drain from her face. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. Maya looked at me first. I nodded once. "Permission." "It's from Grandpa Arthur," Maya said softly. My mother's hands started shaking.
No.
Inside the box sat 3 things. A brass key, a folded letter, and a notarized property transfer document. The lake house deed. Signed 2 months before Dad died. Transferred entirely to Maya Andrews. The room exploded. "What?" Daniel lunged forward first. Rachel nearly spilled wine on herself. Emma stopped recording her dance videos. And my mother screamed. Actually screamed. "That's impossible." Maya flinched beside me. I immediately wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Then I looked directly at my mother. "Lower your voice around my daughter." Mom ignored me completely. She snatched the deed with trembling fingers.
No. No, no, no.
"Arthur would never." "He did," I said calmly. The letter slipped from the box onto the table. My mother recognized Dad's handwriting instantly. So did I. Even now, seeing it hurt. Daniel grabbed the letter first and read aloud. "If you are hearing this," he read shakily. Then Lorraine finally showed Maya exactly how conditional her love truly was. Silence. Heavy.
Sharp. Deadly.
Daniel kept reading. "I spent years hoping my wife would understand that family is built through care, not blood. She failed." Mom stood abruptly. "Don't you dare read that in front of everyone." Daniel ignored her. "The lake house belongs to Maya because she loved me without conditions. She sat beside me when I was dying. She never once treated love like a transaction." Rachel slowly sat down. Nobody interrupted anymore. Dad's words controlled the room now. And because I know how this family operates, I've included documentation proving exactly why this decision was made. Mom whispered, "Arthur," but her voice sounded afraid. Inside the cedar box sat another envelope. Thicker. Heavier. Dad's records. And that was when my mother screamed the second time. My mother's second scream sounded different. The first one was shock. The second one was fear. Real fear. The kind people make when they suddenly realize the quiet person in the room prepared for this moment years ago. Nobody moved. The Christmas tree lights blinked softly beside us.
Red.
Gold.
Red.
Gold. Like the house itself was holding its breath. Maya leaned closer against my side. I could feel her tiny heartbeat racing through her sweater. I kissed the top of her head once. Then I opened the second envelope. Dad had labeled it in thick black marker. For Ivy. Inside sat folders.
Organized.
Dated. Color-coded. Exactly like him. My brother stared. Oh my God. Mom looked ready to faint. Arthur had no right. He had every right, I said quietly. Daniel reached for the first folder. I handed it to him. Inside were printed emails. Photographs. Handwritten notes. Years of them. Evidence. Not emotional accusations. Evidence. The first photograph showed the family Christmas wall from 6 years earlier. Every grandchild's school portrait framed neatly together. Except Maya. Dad had circled the empty spot in red ink. Underneath he wrote, "Ask Lorraine twice why Maya was excluded. She said adoption photos would confuse people." Rachel covered her mouth. Emma looked horrified. Mom folded her arms tightly. That was taken out of context. Dad anticipated that too. Every document included dates, times, explanations. A second note described Thanksgiving 3 years earlier. Lorraine gave Caleb and Emma inheritance jewelry from her mother. Told Maya family heirlooms should stay with real bloodlines. Maya pretended not to care. Cried in guest room afterward. I remembered that night. Maya told me she had allergies. She didn't want me to see her crying. The next document hit harder. Dad had copied part of my mother's email exchange with her sister. One sentence highlighted yellow. "I tolerate Ivy's adopted girl because Arthur insists, but once he's gone, things will return to normal." Daniel slowly lowered the page. "Mom." She snapped instantly. "Oh, stop acting shocked." Everybody was thinking it. Nobody answered. Because nobody had been thinking it. That silence trapped her more effectively than arguments ever could. My mother looked around desperately. At Daniel. At Rachel. At Emma. Searching for support. Finding none. Then she looked at Maya. And somehow, even then, she still chose cruelty. This never would have happened if you hadn't manipulated Arthur. The room froze. Maya's face emptied completely. Not sadness. Not confusion. Just that terrible blank expression children get when an adult says something unforgivable. I stood up so fast my chair nearly tipped backward. You will never speak to her again. Mom laughed nervously. Oh, please, Ivy.
No.
My voice cut through the room like glass. I tolerated years of comments because I thought protecting family peace mattered more than confronting you. I stepped closer. I was wrong. Mom's face hardened. You're throwing away your own mother over a child that isn't even yours by blood. That sentence destroyed whatever remained. Not loudly. Quietly. Like ice cracking beneath heavy weight. Maya whispered beside me. I can go wait in the car. Every adult in the room looked ashamed except my mother. I knelt immediately. No, baby. You did nothing wrong. She nodded. But children always believe adults eventually. That's the danger. Enough repetition becomes identity. Dad understood that. That's why he planned this. Daniel finally spoke. Mom, how long have you treated her like this? Mom threw up her hands dramatically. Oh my God. Everybody's acting like I abused her. You did, Rachel said softly. That shocked everyone, including Rachel herself. She rarely challenged conflict. But once truth enters a room, people either protect it or expose themselves. Rachel looked directly at Maya. I noticed it too. Mom stared at her daughter-in-law in disbelief. You too. Rachel swallowed hard. I just didn't stop it. That honesty mattered. Because families survive denial for generations. But honesty? Honesty changes inheritance far beyond money. Emma suddenly burst into tears. She asked me once why Grandma loved us more. The room went still again. Emma wiped mascara beneath her eyes. And I told her Grandma was just old-fashioned. Maya looked surprised. Like she never expected anyone else to remember. Children carry pain privately because adults teach them nobody wants inconvenience. My mother scoffed. Oh, for heaven's sake, she wasn't starving. I looked at her carefully then. Really carefully. And for the first time in my life, I saw a small woman. Not powerful. Not intimidating. Just small. Small-hearted. Small-minded. Small enough to compete with a child. Dad's final folder sat unopened. I lifted it slowly. Mom noticed the label and immediately panicked.
No.
Her voice cracked. No. Artur promised. Dad apparently promised nothing. Inside sat bank records, legal paperwork, and a second notarized statement. Daniel frowned while reading. What is this? I already knew. Dad told me once, years earlier, that secrets rot families from the inside. Apparently, he documented this one too. 5 years before his death, my mother secretly tried changing the Lake House Trust, removing Maya permanently, adding only blood descendants. Dad discovered it accidentally during a bank meeting. Instead of confronting her immediately, he requested copies. Saved them. Recorded everything. There was even a typed statement from the attorney confirming Dad refused the changes. Mom looked trapped now. Actually trapped. You spied on me? Daniel sounded disgusted. You tried to erase an 8-year-old from the family. She isn't Andrew's blood. Mom shouted it like blood itself was sacred. Then Maya quietly asked the question that destroyed her. Did Grandpa think I was family? Silence swallowed the room. Because unlike adults, children go directly to the wound. I crouched beside her again. Baby. But Daniel answered first. Yes. His voice broke slightly. He absolutely did. Rachel nodded too. Emma crossed the room and hugged Maya tightly. Even the boys stopped playing upstairs and peeked around the corner sensing something serious. My mother stood isolated beside the fireplace.
Still angry.
Still defensive. Still incapable of understanding why she was losing. Because people like her mistake obedience for love. Dad understood something she never did. Love leaves records too. Just different kinds. Maya suddenly looked at me. Can we go to the lake house tomorrow? The question nearly shattered me. Not because of the property. Because despite everything, that place still meant safety to her. Yes, I whispered. We can. Mom laughed bitterly. Oh, that's wonderful. Give the cabin to a little girl who doesn't even understand taxes. I stood slowly. You still think this is about property? It is about property. No, I said. It's about witness. Nobody spoke. So I continued. Dad knew exactly what you were doing. Every ignored birthday. Every missing photograph. Every comment about blood. Mom rolled her eyes. Oh, please. And instead of screaming at you publicly, he built the record quietly. I lifted the cedar box. He wanted Maya to know someone saw her. That hit harder than anything else. Because exclusion depends on invisibility. Dad refused to let that happen. My mother suddenly sat down hard in her chair. For the first time all night, she looked old. Not powerful. Not elegant. Just old. And scared. Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. So, what now? I answered honestly. Now nothing changes for Maya. Everyone looked confused. She still goes to school Monday. Still reads before bed. Still leaves cereal bowls in the sink. Maya smiled slightly at that. But for me, I continued. Everything changes. Mom's eyes narrowed. You're cutting me off. I'm protecting my daughter. She turned you against your own mother. That sentence almost made me laugh. Adults blaming children for consequences always sounds pathetic. No, I said softly. You did that yourself. Then Maya surprised me again. She walked slowly toward my mother. The entire room tensed. Mom looked uncomfortable for the first time in years. Maya held something small in her hand. The painted snowflake ornament. She placed it gently on the coffee table. You can keep it anyway, Maya said.
No anger. No sarcasm.
Just kindness. That destroyed my mother more effectively than revenge ever could. Because cruel people prepare for screaming. They never prepare for grace. We left 10 minutes later. Snow covered the driveway. Cold air hit my face like freedom. Maya climbed quietly into the passenger seat. Then she asked, Was Grandpa mad at Grandma? I started the engine slowly. I think Grandpa was disappointed. She thought about that carefully, then nodded. Children understand more than adults realize. Halfway down the road, she whispered. I thought maybe something was wrong with me. I pulled the car over immediately. Snow drifted beneath the headlights. I turned toward her fully. Listen to me very carefully. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. There is nothing wrong with you. But Grandma was wrong. The tears finally came then. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just exhausted little tears from years of trying to earn affection that should have been free. I held her while snow fell outside the windows. And I silently thanked my father. Not for the lake house. For the proof. Because children need witnesses to survive certain kinds of pain. The next morning we drove north to the cabin. The lake was frozen silver beneath winter sunlight. Everything looked exactly the same.
Krokodok.
Blue shutters. Tall pines. Dad's old wind chime rattling softly. Maya ran inside first. Then stopped abruptly. What? I asked. She pointed toward the fireplace mantel. A framed photograph sat there. Brand new. Not dusty. Not forgotten. A picture of Dad and Maya skipping stones together. And beneath it sat a sealed envelope. My throat tightened immediately. Dad prepared this too.
Of course he did.
Maya opened it carefully. Inside was a single handwritten note. For my captain. Families are built by the people who stay. I stayed. And so did you.
Love.
Grandpa Arthur. Maya cried openly this time. Happy tears. Healing tears. the kind that wash poison away slowly. I looked around the cabin afterward, at the walls Dad built, at the kitchen table where he drank coffee every morning, at the old blankets Maya still wrapped around herself during storms. Then I finally understood something. Dad didn't leave Maya the lake house because she needed property. He left it because he knew someday she would need undeniable proof that she belonged somewhere. And now she had it. Not because of blood. Because someone chose her completely. That spring, I legally changed Maya's last name fully to Andrews. Not because she needed earning. Because she already was. Daniel apologized repeatedly over the following months. Rachel started calling Maya weekly. Emma began visiting the cabin with us during summers. My mother tried contacting me 16 times. Voicemails, emails, birthday cards, excuses disguised as apologies. But every message contained the same invisible sentence underneath. I didn't think consequences would apply to me. I never answered. Some people confuse access with entitlement. Parenthood cured me of that confusion permanently. Last month, Maya stood beside the lake holding Grandpa Arthur's old fishing pole. She's taller now, older, still quiet, but not uncertain anymore. That matters. Because children become what repeated voices teach them they are. And finally, the loudest voice she remembers belongs to someone who chose her proudly. Not reluctantly, not conditionally.
Proudly.
So, if you're listening tonight while wondering whether love without blood still counts, hear me carefully. Chosen family is still family. Sometimes it's the purest kind. And if someone keeps making a child feel small, believe me, the child remembers. But so does the person quietly keeping records. This is Relaxing Drama Stories. And sometimes the calmest revenge is simply leaving the truth where everyone can finally see it.